So I'm going to show you a few other ways to map. I still have my divergent Choropleth for my voting scheme here. I still have my kind of nominal color scheme for my racial demographics, and I still have my linear color scheme for my population. But these are all ratio representations, and quantity kind of gets away from them a little bit. So the computer doesn't get bogged down, I'm actually going to just focus on kind of the northeast here. And what I'm going to do is put it in a different coordinate system, so you can just follow along with my clicks here. I'm going to go Project Properties, Enable on the fly, make sure that's checked, and then type in UTM-17, and then find this one right here, WGS84 UTM-17 North, or NAD83 17 North. Either one is fine. This one's fine too. We'll say OK, and it twists our data. We'll talk about coordinate systems in the next lab. But if you zoom in here to the northeast, it kind of does a good job for this area. And I want to look at the variation in this area, but I want to look at it not by population density, but by raw population counts. And I don't want to look at the percentage of voting. I want to look at raw voting counts as well. So I went in and kind of grabbed Vote 2012 again, and that's what we're playing with right now. And to make the program run a little faster, I'm going to just take a selection and save it as, so it doesn't have to load all of these other counties the whole time. So I click here on my selection by rectangle tool. That's this top one. I'm going to just kind of click and drag and just take kind of a swath of the country here. You have to make sure that you're selected right here, that your layer is activated, and that's good. And I hope you can remember at this point that you need to save as. We did this a few times in the last lab, so I'm going to save this as workshop 2, and I'll save this as selection northeast. Save only selected features. OK, and there we go. So now we've got our new study area. I'll zoom in here. You can show the state still though, that'll be good. But now I think what I'd like to show is the raw number of voters, maybe not the raw population, but the raw number of voters. And so to do that, I'm going to go to Properties, and I could change the style. I'm just going to turn it to a just kind of gray, I think is what I'll do. Just make it a gray, soft gray, with a thin white line as a border so that it doesn't stand out too much. I don't know if you see that. I did it pretty quickly, but hopefully you can learn how to do that. I turned the fill gray and the border white. So I think that looks pretty good. And now I want to add some charts. And we're going to do a proportional symbol map. And what that means is that I want to symbolize under diagrams here. So we're out of the style, we're adding diagrams. These diagrams are going to kind of hover over the centroid of each of these counties. So I'm showing the counties here just so that we can kind of see for a second where they come from, where the charts are going to come from. So show diagrams for this layer. A pie chart is just going to be a symbol, a circle, and let's not show multiple pieces of a pie chart. Let's just show one attribute. How about total vote, right? So I can go total vote, and let's make the total vote color be just a nice well, how about a darker gray? Let's make it a dark gray for now. And that's the attribute I want to see. That's the color. But I want to also change its size so that it varies by kind of by that attribute as well. So this means that it's going to take the maximum value. These are the most number of votes that came out of one county, and that'll be the maximum size, and then the minimum size, it'll all be scaled from this size to this size based on kind of a scale of units. So I can hit apply and it will look a little crazy, but let's just see what happens when I do that. Yeah, and so the symbols are too big, but what we might do is let's just scale it down a little bit. Let's turn this into 5 and see if that helps scale the units at all. There we go, it's a little bit better. So you have to kind of play around with the scale and see how that changes it. And it's scaling them by area. So, but this kind of helps us understand the kind of the raw number of people better than a population density map does, because we can actually kind of look and see that, oh wow, yes, there are like very different quantities of people in these places, and it doesn't just turn it into a color. So mapping one variable can often be really useful if you use a proportional symbol. And oftentimes what you might do is try to symbolize size with a proportional symbol and then ratio with a color for intensity. I'm going to show you a couple more ways to do this. We'll look at a bar chart version, and that'll be good for today. I'm kind of clicking fast, but this is beyond the scope of our normal lab. So the last thing I want to show in this video is how to do a bar chart version instead of the proportional symbol. I try to steer clear of proportional symbols that are pie charts. Pie charts get pretty sloppy. They don't really work very well. I think proportional symbol maps work well when they are in general kind of one variable seen on the landscape. If you see too many pie charts, it kind of does something to your brain that doesn't work very well. Occasionally you'll see multivariate proportional symbol maps like this, but it's very rare that they work successfully, in my opinion. But bar charts are nice because they give linear examples right next to each other. So let's do that. And I'm going to show Romney versus Obama just as kind of an example of how this type of map right here, you know, it might look, oh my gosh, well, Romney didn't win any votes in Maine, but that's not really true. It's just the proportion is a 50-50 in these regions, and a slight margin of victory in these regions. But the raw count is going to show us a little bit more about the character kind of the different states. So let's go to Romney versus Obama, which is, I've duplicated that old layer, and I'm going to go to properties, and this time I'll show diagrams for the layer, but I'm going to show a histogram, and on that histogram I'll have two attributes. I'll get rid of the total vote here, and the two attributes I want to have are Obama and Romney, and these are raw counts, right? I don't want percentage points, I want the raw counts. And I'll do the traditional blue and red here. Blue for Obama, red for Romney. Let's get it a little better here. Okay, and then I think that'll work. And then size. Okay, so it's scaling them based on the total vote, which is good. I'm going to, I think I can make I'd like to make them a little taller but skinnier. I think the flat kind of the width is too wide and it's confusing to look at. So under appearance, I'm going to change the bar width to like 2. I think that'll make it look a little better. And that's starting to look pretty cool. I'll make them even skinnier and get rid of that line color completely. I don't need to see that. It's kind of distracting. That's starting to look pretty interesting. And then I'll go ahead and back to size and increase this to maybe twice the base height and see if that stretches it out a little bit. Yeah, so you know, maybe the width is still a little skinny, but you have to kind of fuss around and see what you like. Yeah, this is starting to look more interesting to me. As a example of raw quantity, I think it shows pretty well. The urban areas tend to be much more liberal. There's still a fair number of votes for Romney in all of these locations. It's just the margin is different in different places. So even though we see kind of red county, blue county, gray county, now we see a little bit more of the population of the number of voters kind of being taken into account. Rural places, even though they are by percentage much more, usually much more conservative, they're not, their populations are so much lower that oftentimes they don't swing the vote as much. So it could be kind of interesting to show this map with a clear bottom. Maybe let's do that. We'll show this these proportional symbols on top of this voting map, right? Okay, so I don't know if you can see what I did there, but I made the percent Romney, percent Obama layers very transparent so that they're kind of softened, and then I'm showing the raw quantities on top. And I think that's kind of cool because it's showing percentage on bottom, but then showing raw quantities on top, and it gives us a better sense of kind of voter turnout, population, and also percentage. So, you know, a lot of these very liberal seeming places in Vermont are not very populated, and some of these places that are more urban or have a higher population, and they seem, you know, they seem gray, and the other map actually have quite a bit of sway. So I think it's kind of cool. You know, Cleveland over here, Buffalo. So just another example of things to do. It was a little bit of a laser show, but I'm just trying to show you what's possible, and we'll get into population mapping in further labs if I get the chance to create them. So I hope you've enjoyed this tour.